Hello and welcome back. We are at the halfway point of the Whisky Advent calendar 2023 today, not this year. Tullibardine yesterday. I thought that was a really good one. Tullibardine is kind of a distillery that, I'm obviously generalising and speaking for everyone here, but it's a distillery that I don't really think about a lot, and I think that a lot of people probably don't. It's kind of a blend filler distillery. It's been owned by White and Mackay in the not too distant past. It's been mothballed in the not too distant past. And I think that it's a distillery that it's a bit like Tamnavulin, that other White and Mackay distillery, in that it's a distillery that produces quite a lot of whiskey. Most of it we never get to see, and what we do get to see is not necessarily the most exciting or interesting. Although that one yesterday really was. I really like that, and it's at number 2 on the leaderboard, placed in the leaderboard blind, and I think it fully deserves that. But yeah, Tullibardine, not a distillery that many people get excited about, and I'd almost bet that there's nobody watching this video that will ever see this video that can honestly say that Tullibardine is their favourite distillery, because it just kind of slips into the teas, like Tullibardine, Tobermory, Tamnavulin, those tea distilleries that people don't really pay a lot of attention to. But it just goes to show that even blend filler distilleries can make cracking whiskey, sometimes, if they get a chance. So, dram number 13 today. A little bit of water there, rinsing glass. Let's see what we've got. If we can get something to match that Tullibardine, that'd be fantastic. A little bit concerned that, like, the last 5 drams have all been the same colour. Yeah, exactly the same colour as that Tullibardine yesterday. Does that mean that it's unnatural? Maybe. Although Murray McDavid, do they add colouring? Don't know, maybe. So not a million miles away from that Tullibardine yesterday, to be honest, on this one. Definitely some sherry on this one as well. And probably a similar style of sherry. And again, getting some toasted grains, toasted barley malt, sweet sherry, a little bit of oakiness, sweetened raisins, probably a little bit less nuttiness in the sherry on this one compared to that Tullibardine that we had from Murray McDavid the other day. Nice, juicy, sugary maltiness, barley sugars, but I would guess it's probably a similar cask recipe to the Murray McDavid. I'm going to guess that there's some bourbon and sherry gone into this. And yesterday I'm a little bit annoyed that I got the cask wrong on that Murray McDavid that I had yesterday, because I thought that it seemed like an Amontillado or possibly a little bit of a port cask, and it was PX. With this one I would guess probably a mix of perhaps Oloroso and PX. It seems sweeter and less nutty and a little bit simpler than the Tullibardine from that PX cask. A little bit more of a jammy, sugary, dried fruit sweetness. I think it's really the lack of that nuttiness on the nose of this one that makes it seem perhaps a little bit simpler and a little bit just more generally sweet. Let's see how it tastes. Yeah, kind of missing that oily nuttiness and that kind of slight plasticine malty note that I got on the Tullibardine yesterday. I think this is a very good whiskey, but it's probably not going to replace the Murray McDavid Tullibardine. A little bit more of a sweet grape note coming out, and a slight rubbery grape on the palate. So lots of good fresh sherry. So what distillery is this from? Kind of puts me in the mind of like a sherried Highland whiskey perhaps. But really there's so many distilleries that could produce something of this style, I think. little bit of kind of dry oakiness on the late palate. But not a bad thing, to be honest. It's just there. So nutty, fruity, again, fruit and nut notes, but less nut than you got on the Tullibardine from Murray McDavid yesterday. Occasionally, though, you just get this burst of really nice, sugary, malty, juicy sherry on the nose. It's an explosion of kind of red fruits, really sugary red fruits. Kind of like those strawberry licorice laces that you get. You get some that are covered in little sugar crystals. Red licorice laces. Grape, fruit and nut, chocolate. Sugary, sweet, bright, sugary maltiness. Sweet sherry. But not just sweet sherry. Probably Oloroso and PX. Good body. That little bit of nagging dry oak comes back kind of in the mid palate every time, but that's okay. I think this is probably going to be a 46% whiskey. I guessed 46% on the Tullibardine yesterday, and that was 44.5. But this seems to me, they both seem to me like a 46% whiskey. I've probably never had this amount of body from anything at 43% or below, so I'll be very surprised at that. But it's also not got the kind of bite and denseness of flavours that you would get from 48 or 50 or above. So yeah, probably a properly presented 46% whiskey with a mix of sherry. So I was going to have a look what it was there, but we need to put it in the leaderboard. I think, and again we've got that same problem that we've got kind of on off all down the leaderboards with heavily peated and sherried whiskies, and it's a bloody nightmare to try and compare them on quality when they're absolute polar opposites of style. But I think this one is going to knock the Ledaig Rioja off the number 3 spot. Oh, that's really medicinal. I don't know if that's because I've nosed that immediately after this, because there's no peat in this, or very, very little peat if there is. But going from that sweet sherry to the Ledaig Rioja, real kind of antiseptic TCP bandages floor cleaner note. Didn't get that much of a medicinal note, and I think it's probably because I'm nosing at AB to something that's not got any of that at all. It's interesting to do that if you've never done it at home. Take 2 whiskies, perhaps similar whiskies, maybe like a 10 and a 15-year-old from the same distillery, something like that, and nose them and taste them alternately. And it's interesting that you kind of get a subtractive tasting method where it highlights what's different. Because if you taste 2 glasses of whiskey that are the same, they kind of cancel out and you don't notice the difference. As soon as you try one that's got one element which is different between them, that single element which is different really leaps out. And on this one, it's that peatiness on the Ledaig. Proper like antiseptic bandage note. Lovely. And I really mean that. Anyone that's not a peat head might think, that sounds bloody awful. And it does, but it's awful in an enjoyable way. So yeah, this one, I think, I'm reluctant to say that now. I was going to say it knocks the Ledaig off the number 3 spot. Does it though? Because that's just an extra level of complexity on that Ledaig that I didn't get before. So is this better? It's not as much fun if you're into peat, but that doesn't mean it's not as good. It's so difficult trying to give scores on a linear scale to whiskies which are not on the same linear scale. Slight bitter oak, but really good body and really good kind of intensity to the finish. Nice, dense sherry oak. I think this is going to knock the Ledaig Rioja off the number 3 spot. What have we got? So it's another Distel product. It's a Bunnahabhain 12-year-old, which we know is 46.3%. And they've even put the lovely, what do they call him, the sea captain, the Stewardar, on the label as well. Bunnahabhain have absolutely fantastic branding. Even going all the way back to when I first started buying Bunnahabhain, when it was still 40% and it was not that good. Bunnahabhain really took off when they went to non-chill filtered and 46.3% across the board. That really just kicked them into gear and made them 10 times better than they ever had been before. But the branding on Bunnahabhain has always been fantastic, I think. It's got that maritime link with, if you've ever been to Bunnahabhain, it's uncomfortably far up a single track road in the middle of nowhere on the northeast shore of Islay near the Sound of Jura. And obviously in the early days of distillation at Bunnahabhain, boats like Clyde Puffers would have been the only way of getting like Caol to the distillery and getting the whiskey out of the distillery. So the maritime history of somewhere like Bunnahabhain is really genuine, and it's good that they reflect that on the label. But yeah, I don't regret that. I think that does knock the Ledaig Rioja off the number 3 spot, and I'm really glad that it does, actually, because I believe I had the Bunnahabhain 12 in the Whisky Advent calendar last year, and I think that must have been a slightly ropey batch, because I didn't like it as much in the Whisky Advent calendar from Master of Malt in 2022. It just seemed a bit dull. It didn't have sweetness. It seemed like the sherry wasn't there. And in this one, this sample that I've got in this Advent calendar this year, it's absolutely back in force. Really good sherry dram that combines, I believe that Bunnahabhain is still matured in bourbon casks, Oloroso and PX. I think it's a vatting of all 3 of those styles, and it works fantastically well. So yeah, that is a new number 3 on the leaderboard. And as I said, ever since the rebrand, when they changed to 46.3% and non-chill filtration, it's been such a better whiskey than it used to be. I have actually got a bottle of the old 40% stuff still on the shelf, which is probably over 20 years old now, so I'll probably review that at one point and tell you how crap it is compared to the new stuff. But Bunnahabhain 12 is a fantastic kind of alternative Islay whiskey these days, because it's not stereotypically Islay, but they have been there for going up for 150 years, and it's fantastic stuff. So thanks for watching this one, and let me know what you think of Bunnahabhain. Let me know how your leaderboard is going if you're tasting along at home, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.